only have to count to 6 right now. All right, it's 7 o'clock. We'll go ahead and call to order our Board of Commissioners meeting for December 21st, 2021 of the South County Fire Board of Commissioners. You could have those at headquarters please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move on to approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve as presented? Commissioner Meador. I think we should give him the first vote on everything tonight. Do we have a second on the motion? Commissioner Lawrence. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Commissioner Chan. Commissioner Chan, are you on? You're on mute.
Yeah, aye.
Okay, great. Motion carries. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda, items 4A through 4E. I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Commissioner Meador. Do we have a second on the motion? Commissioner Teoflack. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. Moving on to approval of the meeting minutes for our November 9th special meeting. We have a motion to approve as presented. Commissioner Meador, a second on the motion. Commissioner Lawrence, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, I think we're speeding through this so we can get to item number 6. Moving on to item 6, Commissioner Meador, Bob Meador's recognition. As most know, this is Commissioner Meador's final meeting with South County Fire on the Board of Commissioners, going all the way back to 2007, is it, Commissioner Meador?
No, it's more than that.
It's more than that. You're on mute, Commissioner Meador.
I think I just said Commissioner Meador has served twice.
Yeah, 1986 to 1991 and 2008 to 2021.
So you took a gap year between the two.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was at the hospital.
Well, Commissioner Meador, we've got a couple recognitions here. I know, Melissa, you've got one if you'd like to go ahead and do that. And then we also have people on the attendee side. We can also have anybody on the attendee side that wishes to make a comment. Please use the raise your hand function.
Wow.
But we'll go with start with Miss Melissa first.
So I received congratulations, Commissioner Meador. We are so grateful to have had you for all this time. Thank you so much. And in the invitations to individuals who we wanted to have an opportunity to honor you, one was not able to make it and wanted to send in a statement, and that is former Commissioner Jim McGahee. And he wanted me to let you know that his grandson was playing in the PLU basketball game in Tacoma, and he was going to be there, and he figured you would be excited to know that.
Yeah.
He was awarded an athletic basketball scholarship last year at King's High School, so he was proud to share that with you. This is what he wanted me to read to you. Bob, you have most definitely given it your all in regards to your career in the fire service and also with a very lengthy tenure as a fire commissioner. Throughout all of those years from 1972 as a firefighter and then ending this year as a South Snohomish County Fire Commissioner, your focus has always been toward finding a way to provide the highest quality of service at a reasonable cost to the citizens that we serve. Even though we may not have always agreed on the issues that we were working on, through those disagreements, we were able to collectively find positive solutions. You've done a lot for the citizens of South Snohomish County and for the firefighters serving those citizens as well. I want you to know that I learned a lot from you throughout these years and hold the highest respect for you as a person who genuinely cares and loves the South County Fire Department and the South Snohomish County community. Enjoy your retirement. You deserve it. Jim McGahee, past Deputy Chief of Training and Fire Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you. Very nice. Very nice. I appreciate that.
If there's anybody on this call, whether in the panelist or on the attendee side that wishes to make a statement, please use the raise your hand function. We'll recognize everybody as we go through here. Looks like we've got 3 on the attendee side. So Melissa, if you could.
Uh-oh. Oh, Larry. Uh-oh. Ryan. Oh, goodness.
So I'll go ahead and start with Brad Redding.
Oh, Brad.
Hey, Bob, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
I used to work with Bob back when he was fire chief in Linwood and worked
Yeah.
on many projects back there with him, then as a commissioner for many years. And appreciate all the years you put in, Bob, and congratulations and have a great retirement.
Thank you. Thank you. Brad was my picture guy. He would take care of my pictures for me, straighten them up on the wall.
Yeah, that one behind you is a little crooked, by the way.
Yeah.
And then we've got Larry Hadland.
Larry?
Yeah, am I off mute here?
You are.
Different controls. Hey, Bob, it's good to see you.
You
I'm sure I'm
too.
going to have nightmares tonight after seeing all these faces from the past, but that's okay. It was worth it signing on to say goodbye to you. I always enjoyed our time in the office when I was proving you wrong and me correct, as always.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
always worked together. I worked with you. I worked for you. And I just hope that as you leave tonight, you get to say every day the same thing I say to myself is the fire service has been nothing but good to me over the last 45 years. And I hope it's been as good to you as it was to me and my family. Good travels and good luck.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you very much.
And Brian or Diane?
Would be Brian.
Brian.
Bob, good evening.
Yeah. Hi.
So it's good to see you. In my years on the commission, working with you, I can say I learned one thing
Okay.
from you. It was if you needed Bob to vote for you, you had to be the last one to talk to him before he got up there. Because if somebody else is going to sway you some other way and you would listen to these guys that are still wrong, and you can see a few of them because they're still red-faced right now. They know what I'm talking about.
Well, they were better talkers than you were. So I hate to say it, but
That's okay. I'm still the young guy in the fire service compared to you and Larry, apparently.
oh yeah, no, you guys were great.
Anyway, it was good working with you, Bob. And
Yeah.
even though you ran for county commission as a Republican, and I was just appalled as a Democrat, I still consider you a friend.
Okay, well, yeah, there's hope for you. Okay.
Thanks. It's good to see you, Bob. And good luck, and thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Next person, John Conderman.
Uh-oh, this could be bad. I don't know, John. He might not be computer
muted,
worthy.
John? We'll jump back to John. Brian Harris.
Yeah, Bob, this is Brian Harris. I just want to say congratulations. Getting to know you first through Richard Ewell, who you worked on the headquarters station in Linwood decades ago.
Sure.
To now, you've been through all kinds of great experiences for the service, and I just wanted to say, thank you for letting us be part of that.
Thank you, Brian. And yeah, I miss Richard a lot. He was a great commissioner. So.
And John, do you want to try unmuting? I see you're unmuted.
Looks like he disconnected, Chair. I'm guessing it's
Okay.
back in.
Okay. Anybody else on this side of the call wishing to make comment? Commissioner Kenny?
Well, Bob, thank you for your years of service to the fire service and here on the South County Fire and previously the Fire District 1 board. A lot of meetings, a lot of time, and I know it takes a lot of time away from your family also. So thank you also to your family for willingness to share you with us on all these nights over many years. But one of my favorite things that I'm thinking about when I think of you is that I know about your love for ladder trucks.
Yeah.
And so I know we have a ladder truck, I believe, coming sometime in the near future.
Yeah.
And I just kind of think maybe this board should name that, give it the honorary title of the Commissioner Bob Meador
Yeah.
ladder truck.
Yeah.
I think that'd be a
ladder
fitting,
truck.
a fitting memento to you and your love for ladder trucks. So I always get a chuckle thinking about that, and
If you could
and I
do
know you
me a-
have your reasons. I know
Yeah, I
you
know.
good,
I know.
but it's always been fun to tease you a little bit about that. So I appreciate you.
You can do me a favor and have the Linwood cheerleaders sit on the ladder truck, and get a picture for me. That would be good because, that's what District 7 did for theirs. I mean, so I know they needed it, so that would be a great tribute to my love for ladder trucks. So
There you go. Well, thank you though for all your years, and I'll miss having you here at the board.
okay, thank you, Jim.
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I was going to save my commission comment for 2 hours, but I guess I'm going to say, well, you and I have political very different, but we both are physical conservative. I really appreciate that we all put together during the recession time, really, saved the last $2 million we didn't send, and now we just grow from there. I really want to emphasize that a lot of people were laughing at the old commissioner, which we'll call a legacy commission. Now is one less now. But I can always pick up the phone and talk to you about issues, even we disagree. And then we all sit next together. I don't know, somehow we sit together on the board, and we all get into trouble together.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I the time that you spend in detail about all this stuff, it's just amazing. I think the board or the staff should really appreciate you for all the detailed analysis. Everybody in the whole county. It's not just how to do things, but knowing the relationship of the neighbor and everything else. That is critical. And when I first get on the board, I have to rely on you, or later on with Brian and Larry, but about any fire services type of thing as a double check. Am I voting the right way or wrong way? So I hope you can still take my phone call after this. If I get into trouble and ask you what about fire service, is that right?
Yeah, we share the same parole officer, so we'll get together. Yeah.
And we're still gonna have a cup of coffee once this thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, Dave.
Anyone else wishing to make comment?
The staff?
Chief?
Yeah.
You're on mute, Chief.
Commissioner Meador or Chief Meador, on behalf of all former District 1, 11, Linwood, Mount Lake Terrace, and Edmonds firefighters, we all owe you a debt. Those that still serve here at the South County Fire, those that date back to when you started in the fire service in our area in 1972. First year my folks bought their house in Edmonds, I moved to this area as a 2-year-old. You were on the job. 1973, you were the first group of EMTs that really started to change what the fire service has evolved to, which is an EMS service that also does fire. You've seen so much change with the Linwood Fire Department as you moved up through the ranks. Over 10 years, I believe, as a fire chief for the Linwood Fire Department, and then 2 different stints serving the community a different way to be able to serve in public office. And I know how important that is to you, not only the fire service that you served, but also in a governance role. I'm proud to have watched you as a chief when I was a young firefighter. Thank you for your advice and mentorship over the years. And I'm proud to be a fire chief here at this department, just like you were years ago. So thank you for your service to Southwest Snohomish County, the residents of it, and all of us in the fire service. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, sir.
That was nice.
Well, Commissioner Meador, it's been a short but long 2 years.
Yeah.
Mostly in this format that we've been able to try to learn from you and other commissioners, and appreciate all the time and effort. And I see that Melissa has got a bunch of balloons delivered by Lawrence Express. with a plaque and a cake. Be careful of the cake. I think there's a file in it,
Well,
just in case you want to.
The
wanna break out of the
plaque,
house.
again, was very, very nice. It was very, it's got a lot of stuff on it. I got to read all that. So, yeah.
Well, I'd like to read a resolution that we like to put forth for a vote. South County Fire Resolution number 1221, 2021-24. So a resolution recognizing the service of Commissioner Bob Meador. Whereas Commissioner Meador has been part of the fire service in Southwest Snohomish County for nearly 50 years and served as fire chief to the city of Linwood for 10 years. Whereas Commissioner Meador has provided dedicated service to the citizens of Snohomish County while serving as Fire District 1 Fire Commissioner from 1986 until 1991, and then South County Fire Commissioner from 2007 until 2021. Whereas Commissioner Meador has served on the Regional Fire Authority Planning Committee and helped draft the plan to approve the plan approved by voters in 2017. Whereas Commissioner Meador has served on many board committees, most recently the CFO Selection Committee and the Intergovernmental Committee, working to bring cities into the RFA to provide long-term financial stability for the fire service. Whereas Commissioner Meador has served as member of the Public Hospital Board of Commissioners and worked on the agreement with Swedish Hospital that led to the creation of Verdant to fund community health initiatives such as South County Fire's Community Resource Paramedic Program. Whereas Commissioner Meador was a leader in the preservation efforts of the Alderwood Manor Heritage Association. Whereas Commissioner Meador's leadership and vision never wavered as he worked tirelessly on issues he believed in. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the South County Fire Board of Commissioners recognizes Commissioner Meador for his distinguished years of public service and leadership to the firefighters, paramedics, and citizens of South County Fire, and extends our gratitude for his dedicated high level of service adopted at this regular meeting of South County Fire on the 21st day of December, 2021.
Well,
Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence.
well, can I
Wait.
say that in honor of Brian and Larry on the call here, if we can have the 3-2 vote on that, that would be really good.
He wants this, you don't want this to fail in a legal battle done in the future. do you?
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll succumb to the.
Do we have
better
a
vote
second
than 3-2.
on the motion?
I'll second that. All right, I yield it to Commissioner Kenny.
Commissioner Kenny, any discussion on the motion?
I think it's a great, it's just it express everything that I think that everybody in this meeting here and more.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Wow.
Any opposed? So that was it was an aye, Commissioner Meador. I didn't see your hand.
I'm sorry.
There we go. Thank goodness. Did anybody talk to you before that happened? We want to make sure you voted for yourself.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Commissioner Meador. We
Yeah.
look forward to finishing out this very lengthy agenda tonight and being able to
I know, we got
call upon you for future issues in advisory capacities.
a lot of work now. One of the things that I received when I retired before from District 1 was a tambourine. And the reason they gave that, they knew that, in fact, it says on there, they knew I'd be needing money. And suggesting maybe I could stand on a corner. This was before cardboard, but that the tambourine was very handy. So I just wanted to point that out.
Very good.
That was quite a party. We had that in person, by the way. So that was unfortunately Carolyn Mackey has passed away recently, which is and also Fred Langer on our Verdant board. He used to be the old Stevens Hospital board. So a sad time there. But anyway, I really appreciate these remarks, and it's always fun. You got it when it's all said and done. Any board you want to have some humor and some fun and enjoy it and realize that we're all pulling together for the same reason. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Meador. You'll have to let us know after the break how the cake tastes.
Yeah.
All right, moving on in our agenda to public comment. Do we have anybody on the call wishing to make a public comment? Please use the raise your hand function. I see one hand raised. Is that
Give me just a second.
Great.
Yes, there he is. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
yes? You feel free to address.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Urban and Commissioners. I am Brian Holtzclaw. I'm the mayor of the city of Mill Creek. I'm here tonight with my colleague Vince Cavallari, who's also a member of our fire board. And I also have with me tonight Mike Todd, my former colleague on the council, who is currently our public works director, and our consultant Karen Reed, whom I believe you probably recognize from her work facilitating discussions that led to the formation of South County back in 2017. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'm just going to offer a few brief comments on behalf of the City Council, and then I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Cavallari, who may have a few things to say as well. First, I want to offer my congratulations to Commissioner Meador on his retirement and thank him for his support of Mill Creek's interest in annexing to South County Fire. I wish you well in your next chapter, and the whole council does as well.
Thank you.
As you probably know, last Tuesday evening, the Mill Creek City Council voted unanimously 7-0 to submit to you the resolution in your packet tonight, formally seeking annexation to South County Fire. We have some work to do before we're ready to take final action to send it to the voters next year, but we wanted to thank and acknowledge the assistance that your staff, particularly Chief Hovis, Chief Eastman, Finance Director Kathleen Zoomlove, and your legal counsel, Richard Davis, have provided to help us get to this point. Their partnership with our team has been very positive and has been greatly appreciated. It is my goal that we're going to finish up the work and be able to place the question of annexation before our city's voters in April of 2022. As you probably know, we've spent a lot of time over the last year doing our due diligence, looking at the options for how we provide fire service to our residents. And we came to the conclusion that annexing to South County Fire offers Mill Creek residents and businesses a stable, high-quality fire and EMS service and is the most cost-effective alternative available to the city. Any option we're looking at that preserves our service levels is going to be considerably more expensive than what we've been paying so far. So as you can appreciate, this has been a very significant issue for the council and for our residents. The willingness of South County Fire to offer an interim service contract as a backup if we are unsuccessful, hopefully not, at the ballot in April is critical for us and will be the ongoing assistance of your agency in our efforts to educate the Mill Creek community about the annexation vote. Annexation of South County Fire makes sense to us given the strong similarities between Mill Creek and the South County Fire and your current contract agency. Specifically, our development patterns are suburban and increasingly urban, and our property values are high compared to much of the county. I and our whole council is very supportive of this effort and believe that annexation to South County is very much in the best interest of the Mill Creek community and provides a benefit to South County Fire. So the council would ask for your favorable consideration of the RFA plan amendment before you this evening. Closing, thank you again for your spirit of partnership that your team has brought to this important subject. And we look forward to our continued discussions and hopefully a successful annexation vote next spring. So with that, thank you for the time, and I turn it over to Councilmember Cavallari if he has a few words to say.
Mayor, I did not see council member online.
Oh, well.
I thought he might be in the same room as you, so I have been looking out for him, but I do not see him online.
Okay, he may have got sidetracked at work. So I guess with that, we'll leave it with my comments, and thank you again for the opportunity and look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else on that wishes to make a public comment? All right. Moving on in our agenda to our fire chief report with Chief Hovis.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioner, staff, and meeting attendees. I'll have a little bit briefer of a fire chief report this evening in respect to our long agenda. The Washington State Department of Health now reports there's been an increase of COVID cases in our state of over 12,075 in just the last week since we met. The state now has had a total of 9,695 COVID deaths, and that's an increase of 115 in just 1 week. Narrowing in on Snohomish County, the health department has stated as of December 21st, we've had an increase of 1,151 cases in the county. We are now up to 849 COVID-related deaths, and that's an increase of 18 in just a week. 42 patients in our county are hospitalized with confirmed COVID-19, and 22 of those 42 are requiring ventilators to breathe. And that data is as of December 17th. Mike Vermeulen will now be screen sharing our 2-week rolling period case count graphic. And fortunately, we have a small decrease in our numbers. We're now at case rates of 267 cases per 100,000 people. Mike's going to transition to our next graphic, which is the COVID-19 update talking about vaccinations. We are at 75% in our county, age 5 and over, that have initiated the vaccination, with 69% of our county 5 and over fully vaccinated. Thanks, Mike. Looking at South County Fire employee-related data, we still have 2 employees now off work, same as last week, due to isolation and quarantine precautions. Total employees with COVID-like symptoms on quarantine or isolation since the start of the pandemic is now at 401, which includes 111 employees that had post-vaccination symptoms. South County Fire has had 46 employees who have tested positive for COVID-19, with 7 of those positives potentially work-related. An increase, commissioners, from last week. We are now at 93% fully vaccinated of our uniformed employee group. Transition to responses. Mike is going to be sharing the 1-week period call volume that is really pretty steady compared to the previous week. So we did not have any occurrences of 3-time standard deviation threshold alerts, but we did have an increase in call volume over last year, transitioning to the next graphic. So we had 590 calls for service in the past 7 days, and comparing that to 2020, we had 69 more incidences, or we were about 13% busier than this week last year. Thanks, Mike. Our agency has now transported 831 confirmed COVID-19 patients, and I've been continuing to report on line of duty deaths, and I don't have any notifications of additional firefighters nationally who died since last week from COVID in their workplace. And just one single update specific to our agency. Commissioners mentioned last week, we were hosting a COVID-19 vaccine booster clinic on Monday, December 20th. That was at Station 15 in the conference room. The clinic, as a reminder, was open to all fire and law enforcement agencies, city and county employees, friends and families of South County Fire, and we were able to vaccinate 178 individuals from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And there's a breakdown in the pie chart for you. So we had good participation at multiple levels. Thanks, Mike. And with that, thank you for the opportunity to provide my fire chief report this evening, and staff would welcome any questions from the board.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions, comments from commissioners? Commissioner Teoflack?
Hi, Chief. I'm not sure if this is a question for you or Chief Maxwell, but do you know when the full dose booster from Moderna might be available as opposed to a micro dose?
Definitely a Chief Maxwell question, Commissioner. Chief Maxwell.
Yeah, well, if you're speaking about there's the microdose, which they're looking at for kids, and those trials recently failed, and it's more of a study trial error. It's not a failure of the vaccine necessarily. It was the way that the trial was structured. So I know they're doing some of those trials in parallel. I would expect probably some updates in January or February on the micro dose.
Gotcha. And for the booster from Moderna, is that a full dose or is it a half dose?
It is a half dose. Interestingly enough, it's still a higher dose than the Pfizer dose. That's why a lot of the studies are showing they think the Moderna was a lot more effective. 1, because it was much higher dose, and 2, because they gave it another week of spacing. Canada had a lot more success because they spaced the 2 doses out better, and I do believe that made it more powerful with its protection. But the reason, really the primary reason they dropped it was just to reduce the side effects. They didn't think it would drop efficacy, but it would make it more tolerable when you got that second or third dose.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, commissioners.
Moving on to our union report with Ben Ostrander from Local 1828.
Thank you, Chair Urban, and thank you, commissioners, command staff, and staff for having us on the agenda, as always. Tim asked me to give our report tonight. He's out of town, spending some time with some family tonight, so he asked me to show up and give the report. Our report will be short. Just would like to highlight that we're working really close with the Edmonds School District to get our Coats for Kids program and get those coats out to the kids the first week of January. So we're looking forward to that. I know the kids are too. So that's a great program that we're going to continue to do. So with that, that'll end our report, and I'll attempt to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Thank you. Good timing. It's been getting very cold out, so I'm sure the kids will appreciate that. Any questions or comments for the Local 1828? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to unfinished business, item 10A, or Capital Facilities Plan Phase 2 draft with Commissioner Kenny.
Okay, so this is our capital facility plan phase 2 draft that you have that came out in the packets. And the board approved back in the summer doing the phase 2. And so you hopefully have had a chance to review that in the packet. And so we're going to have Bob Eastman and Brian Harris from TCA Architecture talk a little bit about that. And I believe Bob is going to kind of lead that discussion. I did want to preface that by saying our Capital Facilities Plan Committee, myself and Commissioner Lawrence, both reviewed the report, thought it looked good. And so we are supportive of it. So, but let me turn it over to Chief Eastman to take us through it a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner Kenny. I'm going to try to keep this brief. As you guys know, this has been a topic that we've been dealing with for a long time, and we've had several briefs with the board. And so I kind of want to go over the highlights and Brian to go over some of the technical things we did to just let the board know where we are. So I'm hoping you read the document, and a couple things that we did differently than the document in the past is of the identified infrastructure needs. We broke those down into categories, which is different than we've presented to the board in the past. We looked at our current existing South County stations that have been identified as tear down and replate and rebuild. We looked at the stations within the RFA that are owned by the RFA that need, renovations and upgrades. We've identified the gap areas between the City Gate report and the work that TCA and Burke and Associates did, where our service gaps are and where stations would be at some point in time in the future. We broke those out independent. Support facilities, the new and renovated support facilities. So we talk about apparatus maintenance, facility maintenance, central stores, headquarters. And again, we broke out our current contract city stations. If you recall, through the facilities planning process, we treated them as if they were, they're part of the operations that we use. We realize that they're currently owned by the cities, and the cities need to maintain them. But as you know, the thought process has always been for the cities to become officially part of the RFA. And so you can see it broke out where the new tear down rebuild of 20 and the current existing stations that need a little bit of renovation. And we broke that down differently. I think based on the conversations we heard from the board, it provides some opportunity for discussion and potentially looking at the bite-sized pieces depending on how we want to go, and was able to illustrate those different based on need. As you know, the phase 1 of the plan was kind of a current situation of where we are in the current status of the stations, and phase 2 is looking future. and forecasting what we think we need and using several metrics to do that. And once again, we were fortunate to have TCA and Burt doing that work for us. And some of the things we looked at was growth, population growth forecasts. And if you recall, the unincorporated area in South County grew faster than it was anticipated in the county's comprehensive plan. We looked at the population age and the changing of the 65 and older demographics, because we know those are a high EMS utilizer. And part of that was to determine, is our patient concentration going to move, right? And do we need fixed sites that are there for 50 years, or do we need to identify transient stations because of the EMS call demand based on population and age? What we found in this is that we're pretty consistent across the board and don't see big age shifts that require temporary structures at this time. We looked at employment growth. We looked at incident forecasting, obviously current gaps. And then we did a lot of work on, our road network infrastructure. We're limited by how fast we can get to someplace. We have a standard of 8 minutes or less 90% of the time. And we have the ability now to look at travel times by time of day with real data within the mapping map layer that we get with GIS. So we looked at that. And then that's what informed what you're seeing in the facilities plan, along with the work that was done by Citygate and Associates for Standard of Cover. Another thing we spent a lot of time at was looking at the station size. I know we've had a lot of conversations about building a Taj Mahal fire station, and we took that to heart when we first started working in phase 2. And TCA did a lot of work in figuring how much space do we really need for a 3-person station or a 5-person station or a 6-person station, for them to live comfortably, but not to have excess square footage just for the sake of having excess square footage. And we did a whole lot of work with regards to that, to where the stations that we're sizing and the station we're estimating for cost are not what I would consider Taj Mahal fire stations. They're not metal buildings, prefab buildings either, right? But they're not exorbitantly large. And so we scaled them back considerably from some of the stations we built in the past as we did that. And I think that's an important piece. As you know, we had to go back and redo the cost estimates. And I think I'm going to let Brian talk about the methodology and the breakdown, and so the board understands the cost that's associated with the identified facilities. And I think it's also important to know, when we did the process, we identified the infrastructure needs first. In other words, we did lots of work over the last 2-3 years. Staff, commissioners, all were able to provide input on what we thought and what we project our infrastructure needs to be, both from support facilities and response or station facilities. And we identified those first. And the rationale behind that is when we first started this, we wanted to know what our future capital needs were, so we can start planning, and the board could use that information to talk about funding strategy and what should we be putting in reserves, and all those pieces that this will help inform. And then once we identified what we thought infrastructure needs were, then Brian and his team went and estimated the cost with escalators and estimated timelines, and understanding that this was a living document, and that just because we identify these stations being built this year or these years doesn't necessarily mean in reality that's what happens. And so there's the ability to, if it moves over or moves out years, or a project moves in years, we can have a realistic expectation of cost. And what we as staff did not want to do is underestimate the cost of the capital needs that we identified. We don't want to be in the situation where a lot of agencies are when they go and do a capital studies plan, that they identify what they want, they move forward, get funding, and then realize they didn't get enough funding to complete the plan, and then they have to cut things off. Staff did not want to do that. We wanted to bring you a realistic cost of what this is and use for the board to be able to plan moving forward. So with that, I'm going to let Brian talk about the methodology and where they are with the cost. And then if you want to talk a little bit about the sizing and some of those assumptions, Brian, feel free.
You're on mute, Brian.
Thank you. All right, thank you, Chief Eastman. So essentially, as noted, these facilities are really designed to be square foot efficient, which really leads to cost efficiency, but in the bigger scheme of things, it's maintenance efficiency as well. Size means a lot of different things. It means more maintenance. It also means increased turnout time and so on. So I just wanted to reiterate that. When we looked at costs, the estimates are broken down by facility, by renovation, by gap facility, by supplemental facilities, into construction and hard costs, which include things such as building costs, site work costs, those things that a contractor would go out and build, including their fees. And then there's also the soft costs, which are included, which would be AE fees, permitting, if there's construction manager, sales tax, furnishings, moving in. We also included, just in some, fine print, there is a LEED certification, so a sustainable attribute to these new facilities. These are things that you don't have to elect to do, but many jurisdictions now do that. So we didn't want someone in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years to come back and say, hey, what about this? Did you guys forget about this? So this is a pretty comprehensive package relative to what we anticipate relative to costs. The cost modeling was based on like facilities in this area. Examples might be Shoreline Fire Department, City of Kirkland. We didn't want to make some of the mistakes that Tukwila made and some other neighboring jurisdictions where they were underestimating and as a result only could build a portion of their overall levy plan. So I just wanted to reiterate that as well. In the second supplemental package, there's over 400 sheets of estimating detail. One thing we also did was we wanted to have some variability in terms of how you look at these sites. So say, for example, you have a station that's a 2-story station, drive-through bays. Okay, we have that covered. If there's that same station, you can't necessarily find that particular site that would allow for a drive-through. We have costs for a non-drive-through bay. For the same station, we'll also have this cost for a 1-story facility. So you have flexibility with this document to target different attributes, depending on particular site selection, site availability, and so on. So the things I also wanted to reference, which Bob made note of, we have a project timing and escalation matrix. So we looked at the stations in addition to contract cities, and laid those out on a timeline based on a prioritized understanding of need. This need is based on a risk discussion that we had with the board, months and months ago. The riskiest stations being those facilities like 22, 23, which are very antiquated. We see issues with those, so those became prioritized. There is land acquisition that's plugged into some of these other facilities. And then we see some of the other facilities, while there's a need relative to replacement of your existing infrastructure that's not functioning well, we see that as a lower risk, but still a need. So that's all been projected out on this timeline. And we have escalation based on a 5%, and then it tiers down to 4% annual compounding escalation, which has historically been the case in this region for several decades. There may be some ups and downs in that, but it seems to even out along that timeline. You know, someone may say, well, what about, you know, if we build today, yeah, there's a spike, but overall, that does even out along that timeline. There is the ability with that timeline to move things around. So say, you know, for example, if land isn't available, you can move a different facility sooner and push that out further. And this matrix allows that to happen by looking at projected escalated timelines. The other thing I wanted to touch on was some of the key priorities that we pushed into these facilities. What we've seen in the industry, as well as within your existing facilities, and just, you know, current best practice, is really a focus on turnout efficiency. So going back to these tighter, cleaner circulating facilities where we're not storing all this miscellaneous apparatus in these facilities. We want these to be tighter facilities, and they've been programmed around that. You know, smaller, easy circulating facilities lend to a quicker turnout efficiency, which means a direct benefit to the public. Additionally, there's been a tremendous focus on health and wellness. We've taken a lot of the facilities that you have, the new facilities, and used really consistent attributes of those, but they've really been tuned up for kind of health and wellness and healthy in, healthy out, looking at kind of pandemic related issues that we've dealt with City of Kirkland, and really at a national level. We push that into these facilities with things like airlocks, hand wash stations, boot wash stations, direct access from, you know, the exterior into decon rooms and so on. We also wanted to touch on just, you know, equity across the workforce. These are very diverse facilities where we have individual sleeping rooms, gender neutral facilities. And yeah, a key thing that we focused on for some time is this notion of future readiness and what that means in the general program. So we focus on those things that we can readily see in the near future that's in the report. We also think it's really important at this phase to standardize as much as possible within these facilities. And the key focus there is if you can standardize, almost like a kit of parts in a way, you can reduce long-term maintenance costs, and there'll be firefighter familiarity within each facility. And then I did touch previously on the density impacts. And as land becomes less available, sites become tighter, and you'll be seeing more and more two-story facilities, you know, in your region. That's something that's really going to be location specific, but it's something that we see happening all over the place. I think, Bob, do you have any other items you'd like me to touch on?
No, I think that's good, Brian. I think I'd like to just finish and then take questions from the board. This is the plan was so we identified future needs, and I think the board or the staff would like the board to consider accepting the phase 2 plan at either tonight or at a meeting in the future. But one of the things that we want is this doesn't mean this is what we're going to do. There's a lot of flexibility built in. This is a living document that we need to be looking at and reviewing on a regular basis. And the other, there's a piece, and we've talked a lot about, you know, alternate options and Cascadia, the the gap station over at Cascadia Way, which is by Swedish Mill Creek, the standalone ED. And we've talked a lot about what are the options of potentially putting a 2-person EMS unit at Swedish Mill Creek. And is that enough to, we don't need to do anything more and build a station from there. And that very well might be the case moving forward. Much less expensive. But what we wanted to do with this, and I'm not going to say bring the most expensive proposition forward, but we've identified the gap. Traditionally, we put fire stations in gaps to meet those demands. And we've talked about it for the last 3 years and before that, there are alternate ways that we can do this work. And we've talked about numerous. And I guess those things are all still on the table, even if the board were to accept the current phase 2 plan. Because as we move forward and decide, the heavy lift comes with what are we going to do and how are we going to fund it, and that conversation is yet to happen. And as we move forward and pick projects to do, or groups of projects to do, or all of it at one time, those are conversations that the board yet has to have to determine where we go. So this is the base for us to have those planning conversations, and determine what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and then how we're going to fund it. And so this isn't a blank check. If you read the agenda bill, there's no budgetary impact on this plan, because that conversation is yet to happen. So I think with that, Commissioner Kenny, I'm going to stop and take any questions from the board.
Thank you. Commissioner Meador?
Yeah, I have a couple thoughts. One is that, first of all, I've always been against the drive-through type of fire stations, mainly because they take more land, more asphalt for drive, as well as nearly twice the apparatus floor that you got to heat. So I just want to make that last minute thought. The other thing is that nearly 85% of our calls are EMS related. It seems to me that, and if we can address that addresses a couple things. Well, if we address it where we buy a piece of, for some of these new sites, a couple of the new sites, where you buy the land that you could put up a fire station, but you put an EMS station there, which could, and I won't go into the details of what that could be, but it obviously has to have a covered area for the ambulance. But that addressed the cost right away. It also addressed the fact that our response time become, hopefully, if it's located properly, that addresses the response time issue somewhat, and which is good. And so I'm thinking that, yeah, I understand Station 22 and 23 are, they're past their shelf life, and something needs to happen. And one or both of them, depending on what we do with Mill Creek, there's a little bit of that issue with Mill Creek, because they were one of the potential annexation partners, if you will, years ago, along with Bothell. And Linwood's out of the picture now. So the idea were to locate that Station 22 and bring it out to more of a better running lane area, out onto Filbert or North Road or something. So my input is that rather than try to float a massive bond issue, I think the South County Fire can address a lot of the response issues and somewhat of the cost issues by looking at it, just a little different. I know you've looked at, these are nothing new here, but like I said, still talking about drive-through fire station kind of give me a bad feeling, because I know how much more that runs the cost up. So, but anyway, that's my input. Thank you very much.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I haven't gone through complete detail yet, but I think one thing I can agree with Commissioner Meador. I think we have that discussion many times about drive-through. Of course, the argument is a saver, but then I think we're trained good enough to do that. I think, yeah, take a lot of land is much more expensive. Second thing I want to emphasize, if I hear correctly, like you will say, location, 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 right? But it's more importantly are the fire service, because our population center always change, right? Especially now, the light rail coming in, Linwood probably have more intents and calls and all that. And then as we have talked about during the last meeting about talking about Mill Creek, about reversing the property is worth what it's used for. If the property use is for fire and EMS service, it worth a lot to us, but not to worth a lot to other people. But if we're out of the popular location, that become a tavern, which is really the value of that building is completely decreased. So we need to be conscientious of that. So look like we're trying to address that.
Commissioner Kenny?
Brian, just a couple questions for you. You mentioned the LEED certification and how that was built into these estimates. And do we have the choice to go with the LEED construction process or not go with it?
Yes. So, currently, there's no mandate or code that requires that. I'd like to point out that just from an energy perspective and water perspective, Washington State is one of the most progressive states in the country. So automatically you have these built-in high performance standards. There are other things relative to LEED that you can do or can't do. Essentially, it's about 1% added to those new facilities, and that's broken out in the estimating, which could be stricken, not done, whatever the political will is or community will associated with that.
Is there any push in the, I guess, regulatory community to make LEED construction mandatory or mandatory in Snohomish County?
A lot of the jurisdictions are starting to adopt that, more so in King County at the moment, where I would say, geez, probably 75% have already adopted some level of LEED. But at the same time, you have other cities like City of Bellevue, who is reconsidering that. Just wondering, what's the true value, and are there other performance metrics that may be more appropriate? They are going to do LEED certified facilities, but there's a tremendous amount of discussion around that.
Okay, so it wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility that, particularly if this plan, our construction plan spread out over 20 years, that somewhere in there, a jurisdiction that we're trying to build in had required LEED certification.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. My second question for you was, I was looking at, I think it's page 15. Sorry, I'm looking at my other computer over here where I have it up. Page 15 of your materials, which is page 67 in the packet. And I see on there that you used forecasting materials from our Citygate standard of cover study and also our cost of service projections from Burke Consulting. And I just want to confirm that's the case for this, that's included in.
Yeah. So we tried to look at it from multiple angles, and everyone seemed to be coming up with those same targeted solutions in terms of gap areas.
Okay. Sounds good. And then the last thing, I just offer a comment, which is the staff request tonight, which is the committee request also, is to have the board accept the phase 2 study. Doesn't mean you have to agree with every last thing. So for example, there's some things that I don't agree in there, like what Chief Eastman mentioned about the Cascade Gap and Mill Creek, the Swedish Mill Creek facility being, it's termed interim in there. I might like to make that the permanent solution, but that's a debate for another day. I think this report provides cost estimates for the types of stations that we're thinking about. It gives you a baseline to run off of. It includes things like that LEED certification, which again, at the time we build, we'll have to decide whether we do that or not. Maybe we'll be forced to, but including that in the cost projections makes sense. So like Chief Eastman mentioned, that we're not underestimating these costs. And then you get down to the end of it. I mean, it's a big number when you include the contract stations. Sorry, I'm just getting to it here. I recall $234 million was the number. You're getting close to your, sorry, I can't quickly get to it, but you're getting close to the $250 million that we had talked about previously. Do we do that in all at once, as Chief Eastman mentioned? Do we do that in 2 different bond measures? Do we do that in 3, break it down even more? That's something to be determined and figure out how we go forward. But this just provides a base of information that we all work off of collectively. So that's why I think it makes sense to accept it. And then, we'll be continuing to work on, so what exactly are we going to lift off the ground? What are we going to go to on a bond? But, you're $234 million, you're almost $250 million that we're going to go to the voters on. Remember, we talked about we would go in 2022. That's clearly moving back, but we don't come up with $250 million easily. We are going to have to come up with a plan that's realistic, that we can roll out over a number of years. But this provides a base of information upon which to do that. And whether the board's comfortable with accepting this tonight, or if you want to roll it over maybe to the next meeting to review the materials, either way is okay. But that was the intent of this, is to accept it, not that you have to agree with everything in there, so that we have something collectively to move forward on as we try to create a plan that will work. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, actually, I want to follow the LEED thing. One of my clients have done a few years back. There was some kind of federal incentive, something like that, for the LEED. They were.
Yeah, this is Brian Harris. Yeah, oftentimes what we've found with federal grants, if you pursue those, oftentimes you do have to have a LEED certified building, because it is a federal mandate.
Right.
So correct.
So there's some advantage in there, yeah. So I really prefer to roll over, if I don't know, is the will of the board, to the January, so we have a little more time to, study a little bit more. That would be appreciated.
Any other questions, comments? Anyone wishing to make a motion in this meeting or move this on to our January agenda?
I can make a motion.
Can I just suggest that we roll this over to the first meeting in January? I think we are going to get to a place where we have, we'll get to a place where we have consensus around this, because the lift here is not super high. And I want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with it. We don't have to force it. This is the first time the board's seen it. It is a large document, but we wanted to try and get this in here at the end of the year and get Brian here to talk and answer any questions. So that kind of gets you up to speed, everybody here on the board. And then, we could tackle it that first meeting of January, or even a subsequent meeting. So I think that would be, I want to be sure everybody's comfortable moving forward. So I just suggest we roll this over to the next meeting.
Commissioner
I'll
Lawrence?
second that.
Oh, Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, I think January is good, because in January, we can talk freely about how many more ladder trucks we want to buy and how we can house them.
So noted. I don't think we need to make a motion and do it officially. I think we can just move this on to our January agenda. I appreciate all the hard work that our capital facilities group has been doing. I know this is such a big thing to tackle. Having, and as Commissioner Kenny pointed out, having at least a shell of a plan that we can start working from. Like, each of these stations is going to require bids, and based on the land and based on so many other factors, and this just gets us in a path moving forward. So I appreciate the hard work that the committee's been doing, and staff especially. I know this is a very old topic, and we're working towards it. Anything else before we move on in our agenda? Thank you, Brian, for your time as well, and DC Eastman.
Great. Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
moving on our agenda to item 10B, City of Mill Creek resolution discussion with Attorney Rich Davis and DC Eastman.
So commissioners, we have on the agenda tonight a resolution to amend the RFA plan to provide for the annexation of the city of Mill Creek into the RFA. We had this on the last agenda, a red line version to show the changes that have been made to the document. And if there are any questions, any further questions about that document, happy to answer them. So I'll just, I'll pause there, and or maybe Bob wants to add something before that. No? Are there any questions?
Any questions for Rich? Commissioner Kenny?
Yeah, are we going to talk about the money and the contract, not necessarily the plan, although I guess I was curious, just one question about the amendment to the plan. Was there any discussion with Mill Creek about whether they really wanted to have a representative sit on the board as a non-voting member? I don't have that right in front of me here. I can't remember the provision in there. We talked about it last week, and Rich Davis said that we would not actually go 4 years with that. That would actually look like it'd be about a 2-year span where that would happen before it would be effective for a redistricting that we would need to do if the annexation became effective. So just curious if that issue was ever raised with Mill Creek.
We did talk about the provision in the RFA plan that provides for them to have a non-voting member on the board. I don't remember there being any concern about that during our discussions. I don't know, Bob, if you have a different recollection, but I believe that they were agreeable to that.
I think it was quite frankly, it was a very brief conversation. And based on the way the current plan was drafted, that's how the board envisioned that with the current plan. And I think we had a conversation about it, and I think once they knew that, we moved and started probably another conversation with regards to that. So I would agree with Rich that they were comfortable with that. And I don't think we actually asked the question, if you were given that opportunity, would you actually put somebody on it? I don't think we asked them that specifically, Commissioner Kenny, if they wanted that position or they wanted that option or not. I guess we knew it was in the plan and had a conversation about that with them and didn't ask the question you asked specifically of them that I recall.
The reason that I have some concern and whether there was significant interest at Mill Creek about having that position is when we last did this and combined with the city of Linwood, we had 5 commissioners and we were adding 2 Linwood City Council members, ended up being 2 Linwood City Council members for a total of 7 on the board, and those were voting members. But we had 7 voices in the room, shall we say? We have 7 now, and this would be adding an 8th non-voting voice, but still a voice in the room. And I'm thinking about if we had another city during this, 2 years isn't as long as I was thinking from what Rich Davis said last week, 4 years, going 4 years with that. In that period of time, we might have another city come on board in the same fashion, doing the same thing with another non-voting member. And suddenly now you've got 9, another non-voting member. So you go to an 8th with Mill Creek, then you go with a 9th with somebody else. The room's starting to get filled with a lot of people. And I'm just wondering, would we want to amend the plan to not do that? So that thought crossed my mind when I started thinking, particularly about the 4 years. Maybe it's not quite as big with the 2 years until redistricting, but I don't know. The thought crossed my mind.
My recollection, Commissioner Kinney, is that we put this language in the plan when we originally, created the RFA with the city of Linwood, knowing that we would be facing some potential annexations into the future, and we wanted to have a placeholder so that we wouldn't be negotiating with each jurisdiction that wanted to annex in. We would be able to say, look, this is our language. It applies to every jurisdiction that does ask to be annexed in. Certainly, it does mean more voices potentially on the board, but that was the thought process that we had at the time. The commission, certainly could change that, but we've been through these discussions, as Chief Eastman said, with the city of Mill Creek. It did come up briefly. I know that this is their expectation, at least at this point.
Commissioner Chan, and then Commissioner Meador.
Yeah, actually, Rich and then Commissioner Meador. I remember the reason we expanded from 5 to 7 is because we were the first forming RFA, and that's why we feel 7 is a good balance, right? So eventually, the 2 additional commissioners now are replaced by the people in the district and representing, the people in the resident in there. And you said 2 years, is that what we plan? Do we, the language, do we have to say how quickly do we do redistricting, changing the map? Did we say that in our plan?
We don't actually have a provision about when we are going to do that necessarily, but there are, as I mentioned last commission meeting, that there is a federal requirement to do that, to ensure that your districts are of relatively equal population, and that you have, if you're going with commissioner districts, you have to have districts that cover the entirety of the RFA. Now, if the annexation took place on such short time that you didn't have the opportunity to redistrict, you could safely wait a cycle for 2 years to pass by. But I made a mistake when I mentioned this. I got confused about the years during the last commission meeting, which is why I sent the email out. And my understanding in speaking with staff is we have plenty of time to do the redistricting and still have somebody or still have that districting done before the 2023 election. So the prudent thing to do would go ahead and redistrict before that.
So that means the non-voting member will be last for just 1 year, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and then I understand that we do not have to go to the border review board. So that saved a lot of time and bureaucracies, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
I think Bob Eastman kind of know what I'm saying.
We have no requirement to go to the boundary
Right.
review board with Mill
Yeah.
Creek annexing into the RFA. That's correct. We do have to, Rich, and correct me if I'm wrong, we do have to do a SEPA or something there similar, but that's not near the time consuming effort that going to the BRB is.
Yeah, BNB, yeah, that's time consuming. Yeah, good. All right.
Commissioner Meador.
Yeah, currently the city of Linwood, even though the individual hasn't ever attended, but does assign a liaison to the board. And I'm not sure that everybody understands that, but and I would think, there's a fine line, I suppose, between a liaison to the board from what city and somebody that's there as a non-voting member of the commission. So there's probably a distinction, but my thought is that at first there would be, if Mill Creek was to follow that, if we would do something with Mill Creek, if they were to follow that example, there'd be, again, potentially a Linwood and a Mill Creek person in the room already. And I'm not sure, I know it doesn't include in our plan, but and I'm not even sure if they referred to the chair or how they did that when they did it, or if anybody ever knew. But so we're already potentially involving more people doing the commission business than just 5 or 6 or 7 commissioners. So anyway, that's just my input.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Kenny?
I want to come back to my first question, which is, are we gonna talk about the money and the contract and the other issues surrounding this and whether this is a good deal for South County Fire? I mean, I understand this plan amendments on here, but what about, I mean, and that's a technicality, but are we going to talk about those important issues?
Well, this is the forum, so feel free to go ahead and, if you've got specific questions on the contract and amounts, please ask, and we'll, staff and Rich will do their best to answer.
Okay, so I think it's important to step back for a moment and look at what Mill Creek was reviewing, and if I can have Melissa screen share that 1-page document. So this is page 106 of Mill Creek's December 14th. So their meeting last week, their meeting packet. At the end of our meeting, I encouraged everybody to go and take a look at those materials. And I still encourage you to do that. I also encourage you to review the hour-long video of their meeting to look at, what were they deciding? I know we've talked about this at one meeting, and now at our subsequent meeting, we're being asked to vote on this, which seems kind of fast without a lot of analysis from our point of view as to whether this is a good deal. But I wanted to point out that the city of Mill Creek was considering 2 competing proposals last week, a proposal from our staff and also a proposal from Surfer. Based on my observation of Mill Creek City Council's debate around this issue, which ended in a unanimous vote to proceed with annexation with South County Fire, the primary issue they were focused on was the cost. And this slide nicely identifies Mill Creek staff's evaluation of the costs of Surfer versus South County Fire in the near term, 2022 through 2025. And there they indicate that the cost is actually quite close. 27.6 million with South County Fire, 29.7 million with Surfer. The amounts were a little different in each year, but over that's the summation over those 4 years. And the Mill Creek City Council seemed very caught up in the fact that, that's, I believe, $2.1 million difference, that there was a $2.1 million difference that they were going to save over 4 years with South County Fire versus Surfer. And that's about a 7 to 8% difference. And so if you really want to get into this issue from the Mill Creek perspective, you need to go back 3 or 4 meetings and look at their debates about this issue. But somewhere in there, Surfer came to the Mill Creek City Council to make a pitch for having Mill Creek review their proposal or a proposal from them. And in there, they indicated that they have been serving the city of Mill Creek since Mill Creek's incorporation in the late 1970s. And if I recall correctly, have served that area since, I want to say they said 1948. So I can't say that for sure, but the bottom line is a long time. Surfer's been the fire and EMS provider for Mill Creek for a very long time. And I think it's really interesting that for a 7 to 8% difference in a contract cost over four years, Mill Creek is willing to terminate their relationship with their long-term provider and go with us. I think that just tells you a little something about Mill Creek. I think it's also important when you look at this slide, the bottom of it, the last line, all estimates assume neither agency pursues a lid lift in this interim period. I didn't include in this other slides, there's a lot of slides, but one of the other slides says that they're assuming that South County Fire will only increase its benefit charge 2% per year. And nowhere in there did I see anything about our 100 million, 200 million, or $234 million voter approved bond for construction costs coming sometime in the near future. And so one of my concerns, and I actually asked Chief Eastman this last week, was, well, what were we telling them? Was staff promising them no lid lifts, promising them 2% benefit charge increase only, no more? And Chief Eastman said, oh no, we never said anything. Well, it's clear from listening to the Mill Creek City Council that that's their interpretation. Whether we actively said that or not, that's what they're assuming. But clearly, and I think Commissioner Chan sent it out earlier tonight for a different purpose, but just to the commissioners and maybe senior staff, our strategic outlook from earlier in the fall in our budget, where in all years, in all scenarios, our expenses are higher than our income. And so the deficits go on as far as the eye can see. And this year we accessed the GEMT money to help blunt that. And that may work for another year, maybe two, but it's not going to work forever. And so what's the I just remember we declined, about $2 million of the chief's requested increases. We've got lots of needs, and we're bringing in less than we're spending. And so, yeah, maybe we'll tighten our belt and solve our problems that way. But, it's probably a lot more likely we're going to do a levy lid lift, or we're going to increase that benefit charge a lot to make up for that difference. Because at the end of the day, we can't run a deficit. So I was really curious when I saw they understand, we told them, or they understand that there's no levy lid lifts. And I didn't say that. I don't know where they got that idea, but we clearly are going to need levy lid lifts and or a big increase in the benefit charge to pay for all these deficits that we have coming. So we can't run a deficit. We're going to have to increase costs or slash expenses. And nobody's also talking about that big bond that we want people to pay for. So it just seemed odd to me that that's nowhere in here. And, because by just a quirk of fate, we didn't do a levy lid lift. We only did our 1% increase this year, and the 2% on the benefit charge. We happen to be at a very low rate right now. And when you compare that against Surfer, we come up looking nicely. But that doesn't really address our future costs. And when they look at this 4-year projection and go, wow, we're going to save $2 million, that's the be all and end all. So we're going to change service providers. Don't we need to be a little more transparent about our upcoming costs? And there's no promises for no levy lid lifts or benefit charge at only a 2% increase. I'm just like, one way or another, Mill Creek needs to know. Yeah, today those things they don't we're not doing them today. We're not doing them for 2022. But if you look at our forecasting materials, somehow this has got to get fixed. And I'll tell you the likely way they get fixed. It's going to be tax increases one way or another. So I just thought that was really interesting and potentially problematic. But anyways, I think that's important for commissioners to realize what Mill Creek's thinking about. As we move on to the actual contract, my concern is not so much how we would resolve if the annexation goes through in April and it becomes effective in August, the balance of next year, 2022, I figure we can, with the amount that Surfer's getting for the balance of 2022, that will work out fine. My concern is when we get to 2023, if the annexation fails, how did we determine what that price was in 2023? And Chief Eastman verbally said what it was, but I haven't seen anything in writing. And even 2023, I guess I'm not as concerned about, because I figure, we can live with something for a year. But this contract is 2 years. It goes 2024. So even if they go to the ballot in or April of 2022, we on this contract are still on the hook for 2023. How did we determine 2023's costs? I don't know what our 2023 costs are. How does anybody else know? And if you look in the contract, then there's an optional year beyond that to 2024. 2025. And I'm like, why do we want to have an, I don't understand the 2024, 2025, how those costs are made. And I was particularly interested in, if we're using our cost of service projections developed by Burke Consulting, which we got on June 9th, 2020. I'd really like to see an analysis of that to this contract, so I know whether we're getting a good deal or if this is a bad deal. Because my overall concern, commissioners, as you've heard me say ad nauseum here at the board, is I'm concerned about subsidizing cities. I feel like we are subsidizing cities. I don't want to subsidize any more cities. So I don't need to bring on Mill Creek and subsidize them. And we would not be doing so if the annexation goes through. But I'm thinking forward to the contract. If the annexation is not successful, we're on the hook for a number of years here. And, maybe we want to not have 2023, 2024, and 2025 in the contract, just the balance of next year, or maybe just the following year because they agree to go to the ballot in 2023. But, I'm concerned about subsidizing cities. The area that I live in, Silver Firs, is very close to Mill Creek. I don't know why people in Mill Creek in my neighborhood should subsidize the city of Mill Creek. The people in Mill Creek should pay the same thing the people in Silver Firs, the good people of Silver Firs, are paying. So, I'm just concerned that we're buying into another contract that we're potentially subsidizing. So I don't want to go too far with that argument. I love to talk about it, but I don't want to go too far because I haven't seen any analysis on it. And that's where I'm wondering, do we really, I don't really want to do a plan amendment and start the ball rolling if we haven't really looked at the finances on this, because maybe this is a good deal. Chief Eastman has intimated in our last meeting that due to the values of Mill Creek properties, that this is going to be a good deal for us over time. And I can intellectually, I can kind of potentially see that, but I'm like, let's lay this out and have a bigger conversation about it, because this may be a really good deal for us. I'm just, I'm a little gun shy on the whole subsidizing cities thing. And we also have some time here. I don't know why we need to pull the trigger tonight on anything. Just because somebody else is getting backed up against the deadline doesn't mean that we have, somebody else's emergency is not necessarily our emergency. So I think we need to do our due diligence as a board. So anyways, that's my long way of saying, well, is this kind of the cart before the horse, talking about amending the plan when we really haven't talked finances on this? Because I thought there was a negotiation process, talked about how we were going to negotiate with them, but I'm not seeing negotiation here. And another big piece that everybody else may not be concerned about, but I'm concerned about, and I haven't heard anything about, is what about the Mill Creek employees? I'm sorry, not the Mill Creek, the Surfer employees at the Mill Creek Fire Station. The last time we heard Chief Hovis talk about this, he said, well, he was going to negotiate with them or talk with them. Has that been done? What are we doing? What's the plan to actually bring them over? Like they have lieutenants instead of captains, at least the last I heard. Are they coming over with service credit? Are they coming over at our pay rates? Or if they make more, do they come over at their pay rates? There's a whole lot of details that a whole lot of people in our organization care a lot about, and maybe commissioners don't care as much about. But I am wondering, that is a potential bone of contention between us and Surfer. And I think we want to make sure we try and have that be as smooth as possible, because Surfer is going to be our neighbor for a very long time. So I just see a bunch of details here that I'm wondering, what about those before we start the ball rolling on formal annexation? Thanks.
Was staff or Rich, anybody have some answers, comments in regards to Commissioner Kenny's questions?
Well, I might just start out by saying, the motion, if there is a motion tonight to approve this plan, that the amended plan would deal with the annexation of the city into the RFA. Commissioner Kenny raises some good points about the service contract, which would be implemented if there's a failure of the annexation vote. I think if there had been more time, all of those agreements, the pre-annexation agreement, the service agreement, and the RFA plan amendment would probably all be coming to the board at the same time. But because of the timing issue and the fact that the city wants to get this on the April ballot, this is the first step in the annexation process. There will still be time to talk with the city about the contract for services and to refine that contract. And with that, I'll turn it over to maybe Chief Eastman or Chief Ovis.
Commissioner Chan, you have your hand up. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I think you and
My
I.
hand was up for.
Yeah,
Sorry,
Lawrence
Commissioner
first.
Lawrence.
Commissioner Lawrence first.
Yeah, so based on what Rich said, this is the first step, and it's about getting them into the RFA vote. And then we have time to work out the details about if it fails, what would be the service contract. And I agree with Commissioner Kenny about how we go about that. I mean, with fear and trepidation, because we do not want to be subsidizing cities again during the time that we have to offer them a service contract. And then if it fails, what happens then? But I'm assured there by Rich that we could vote to go to the next step is for getting them into the RFA, and that we have time to figure things out. And I think we, as a group and the staff and the board, has learned the lessons about what contracts we service contract with cities, that we could do it right this time and not be subsidizing them. So I think we should go ahead with moving to this first step here. Thank you.
Commissioner Chan.
Yeah, I want to just clear one thing. I think we should really slow down the word subsidizing. What I'm trying to prove is that this is a different contract. Is just like a renter. You pay the rent, $1, $1,000, you pay it. You don't have nothing back at back. As our FA residents, we are levied for $1.50, but we did not spend $1.50. We only spent how do I know? Because our reserve fund have grown and grown. We reserve the money for apparatus and everything else. We also own the land and everything else. And therefore, we are not really, I mean, we can adjust a little bit, but not the huge thing by subsidizing. Now, so by that, it means now, actually, Mill Creek is a good example. They were renter for all this time, right? Suddenly, now they got a rent increase, which is significant. That's the reason that they want to talk to us. And so by joining us, then they have become homeowners. So we were encouraging all the contract city to become a homeowner. Okay, that's the key thing that we need to do. Maybe you give you a chance to you, Commissioner Kenny. I just didn't have time this week, this month. If you go back and review, Bob Eastman had done in Mill Creek Johnny, Monarch Terrace Johnny, it's win-win situation. The levy rate will continue to go down. So that is a direction we want. But even though the contract, I'm not sure really, we're not subsidizing. I think we really should stop using the word subsidizing. Now we might able to get more equitable, a little bit more money, but because now the contract, all the contracts in the way leave us, they don't share any of the reserve fund that we have, right? They're not building up equity. Even the situation in Mill Creek, they don't own the fire station, right? They have to pay its server to do that. So they are not really getting away with it. So I agree. Maybe Rich said that we probably still have time to negotiate on the contract pie. But if for the time being, because the thing I hear from the mayor, a little bit different from what the discussion. The mayor said that they like to join us because we have a stable organization. Maybe they look at our reserve fund. That means actually it's good for the Mill Creek people because immediately they become a homeowner with us. They were sharing our reserve fund. and also good for our citizen, our resident, because certainly now more people have become homeowner. And so joining us to have more money, putting the resources together, building our reserve funds and all that. So I do encouraging us to vote, but if it's more comfortable with you, I willing either way to, and give me a little chance on January, I can explain you more detail how the number works. But probably Bob Eastman can answer me better in the details because he has worked on a really good schedule in there. Bob, you want to explain a little bit more?
Commissioner Meador, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, can I do the two issues that Commissioner Kenny addressed? One is the indicated a loyalty issue to District 7. It seems like in talking with the people at Mill Creek that things changed in District 7 when they became the fire department for Monroe and Lake Stevens. And they feel more of a commonality with the western cities and towns than they do with Monroe and Lake Stevens. So I can understand why they might want to move on. The second thing is that we have underperforming contracts now, that somewhat we created, as well as just the cost went up. It seems unusual, kind of unfair, and that's not a good word, but that we're holding another potential member city from joining us because of our mistakes or our unfortunate situation with 3 underperforming contracts. Now, one of them or 2 of them probably will get resolved within a year or so, and I think that, I understand not wanting to bring on another underperforming contract potentially, but I think that the committee and the staff has done a good job of trying to assure that and costing this program out. If it's temporary or long term, but it's designed not to fall into that particular problem again. And so I'm very because I think that Mill Creek belongs with this, with the group of cities of Edmonds and Linwood and Valley Terrace. So I really think that, and I understand, we got to be careful. And but I think that the committee and the staff have done their homework very well on this one. And I think that there's always risk involved, but I think it's well worth it. So that's all I have.
I'm in agreement. I think this is, as staff stated, kind of first steps. There are other steps that need to be finalized, negotiated, that we will be part of. As far as what I recall hearing, that if they were unsuccessful going to the voters this year, that the contract is 2 years and no chance for renewal. So that would be 23, 24, if I recall correctly. And I know that staff was working off of parity and taking some other factors in, with transport fees and them having to purchase the station. So I don't think staff's being cavalier. I think they've seen the results of some of our past contracts and how they've limited us in our abilities. And I look forward to further discussions as we move towards April with this matter. And I think passing this now gives Mill Creek and staff and the intergovernmental a chance to work towards and bring more details back. As far as their presentation, I see that as they were just trying to show an apples to apples. They picked a 4-year period, which isn't relative to what our contract for service would be if they failed with the voters. And it did say, assuming that there was no levy increase. I don't think it was saying that there's not going to be a levy increase. I think it was just a way to show all things being equal. This is what an apples to apples would be. So I didn't see that as a promissory of no levy increases, things like that. Any other questions, comments? Commissioner Teoflack?
One of Commissioner Kenny's questions was regarding the bringing over CERP for employees. And being on the intergovernmental committee, we talked about that probably almost every meeting. I know President Hoover isn't on the line, but can Chief or someone kind of address what the decisions have been made about surfer employees?
Yeah, I will start from the beginning. When the city of Mill Creek originally approached South County Fire after Chief O'Brien sent the termination notification to the city for their 2-year termination, we met both board chairs, so on their side, Roy Waugh, both fire chiefs, so myself and Chief O'Brien, Union President Hoover, and then at the time, Union President Mike McConnell, to come to a consensus that no matter what City of Mill Creek chooses to do, that Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue and South County Fire will continue to be the largest and second largest fire agencies in this county. The most important thing is we need to have continuity of fire and EMS service in the City of Mill Creek, whatever that looks like. And also at the other end, continue to partner. And the most important asset in any organization, its people, needs to be taken care of. So very similar to if a city would annex a fire district, and commissioners, we've talked about that in the past and thinking about with Bothell and Mukilteo, how that would affect. There's certain RCWs that actually cover that because that's something that's been done a lot in cities. There's actually language in both district or surfers collective bargaining agreement and our collective bargaining agreement with local 1828 that talks about this. And that's really been the premise going forward, is no matter what happens, that we need people to be serving at that fire station. Since that time, Surfer decided that they would either want to do a benefit charge or lift their fire levy. They did an analysis with the same consultant that we use and decided that based on what the makeup is of the city of Monroe and the city of Lake Stevens and a lot of unincorporated areas that are outside of their urban growth area, that a benefit charge wouldn't work for them. So as you know, they lifted their fire levy to $1.50. So it puts them, I think, in a good spot now for what they have for revenue. So during that time, Chief O'Brien indicated to me that he did not think that any employees would be lost from Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue if the city of Mill Creek went to South County Fire. My last conversation with him was last Friday, as he was going to be starting a vacation. And we're going to talk again after he returns first week in January, and just really talk about what where South County Fire is now and where Snohomish Regional Fire and Rescue is with the people. I won't speak for President Hoover, and Vice President Owenstrander can certainly indicate if he's been at the meetings, but both local unions have met at the executive board level. And I would just also add that Chief O'Brien has a capital facilities plan they have in draft form right now for their existing fire stations, to include the building of a fire station. I believe it's going to be called 84 at 20th Drive Southeast. So go over the trestle, head up the hill where they're going to build a Costco. And they've purchased some property and they're talking about building a station. So if this is voter approved, it gets them a little bit closer to a transition point where they might have a temporary station, or they could upstaff some of their existing stations. It's my understanding through Chief O'Brien and through him speaking on behalf of where his organization is he thinks he can keep all of his people. But the offer should be here from us that if they have financial offsets or people obviously want to come here, we do open enrollment. And we do have lateral firefighters from other agencies that apply, and we'll certainly make sure that there is no adverse impacts to current employees of Snohomish Regional. I think that covers everything that we talked about in intergovernmental commissioners, and Commissioner Tilfalak, Commissioner Meador, and Commissioner Urban. If I've left anything off, but I think that covers the timeline. Thank you.
Great. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 12/21/2021-18, the amendment of South Snohomish County Fire and Rescue Regional Fire Authority Plan. Is there a second on the motion? Commissioner Meador? Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Kenny, then Commissioner Chan.
Well, it's disappointing to me that we're trying to move with such speed and little analysis. There's no financial analysis related to this annexation. So I don't know whether it's a good deal for South County Fire or not. I am concerned about that multi-year contract and whether we will be subsidizing the city of Mill Creek in that. But it's possible we won't, and it'll be net positive for South County Fire. I just don't know because there's no analysis, or there is an analysis, then it's not being shared with me. I just don't know. This issue was first on the agenda last week. As we heard, Mayor Holtzclaw said, the Mill Creek City Council, and if you look at their, listen to their debates, they've been debating it since late November. That's not that long of a time to be debating it. But up until last week, I had been hearing from Chief Hovis that, oh, basically we're just having some meetings behind the scenes and exchanging documents. And, it's like, didn't seem like it's that big a deal. And then we have the meeting last week with these various documents, the plan amendments and the contracts. And then a week later, I see in the agenda bill that there have been 8 formal meetings, and essentially, oh, we've been negotiating for a long time, so this is a done deal. And let's just sign off on it. And I'm like, well, on the one hand, it's characterized as, we're just talking behind the scenes. And now within a week, it's, oh, we've had all these formal meetings and negotiations, so it's just a done deal. So just sign off on it. I'm like, well, I haven't been part of any of that. So I don't know. I'm looking for your financial analysis. I see no financial analysis. I'm wondering where's our cost of service model analysis of this? Where is it in writing how much this is going to cost and why that? I've heard some of it verbally, but I haven't seen it in writing. So I'm like, well, what's the big rush here? Just because Mill Creek's in a rush, does that mean we're in a rush? Their emergency becomes our emergency? It's frustrating to me that the train's leaving the station with this and, oh, we're going to negotiate it later. I hear that over and over. We're going to negotiate it later. Well, why don't we negotiate it when we have the most leverage, which is up front, which is right now? And I'm also concerned that we haven't really done our work with Surfer on the transition of those employees. I think that saying, oh, we have, policies that those employees can, at Surfer that might get laid off can work through. I'm like, maybe we want to have something in writing about what's going to happen with them, because we've got a very long border with Surfer, and I don't think we want to make them mad. So we got to work that out. Maybe they can keep all their employees, and it's a totally moot issue, but maybe it's not. And I'm like, well, why aren't we figuring that out before we start the train leaving the station? So it's just frustrating to me that it's happening in this fashion. I wonder where the analysis is. Maybe, anyways, I haven't seen an analysis. I need analysis first, plan, or, moving forward second. So I say that in lots of different things that we talk about here. Let's put the plan together first and then go out and get the money, that type of thing. But here, where's the analysis before we move forward? So anyways, I'll be voting no on this, on the annexation. So thank you.
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, that's my question to Bob or Chief Hovis. What harm would be done if we delay this until January, so that Commissioner Kenny have a little bit more comfort to understand it? And I probably can help out to explain the financial side, but not in detail like Bob can. I'm comfortable with the financial part of it, but I don't want to be get in a situation some commissioners don't get enough information, not comfort to vote. So tell me does that become really bad, or is that absolutely after this meeting? Can we wait until January 4th?
Commissioner Chan and commissioners, I know that this is an important issue for the city of Mill Creek, and I know that they last week voted 7-0. I know they're anxious under a tight time frame and losing a few weeks here for the holidays to get some assurance whether or not this is going to be accepted or not. So at least for planning purposes, for putting this on the ballot in the April 2022 special election, start educational messaging and those things for residents. I think it's very important for them that they would be very appreciative if action is taken tonight. I can't speak for Mayor Holtzclaw, but he indicated that in the messaging that he said tonight that's what I heard. So I think that's my opinion.
Well, okay, then I have to say again, I think this arrangement will be good for both, for the residents of the Mill Creek and also resident RFA. As I mentioned before, now they become a homeowner, just like us. It's just like, I think I want the message to them is positive too. And certainly they got the stock up, just like kind of free stock from Microsoft, Amazon, but also that they can bring in a lot of the value, because property value, that will give us a equitable revenue, and also for the we have the benefit chart, so we can balance out all that. I'm willing, because the contract will be 2 years, right? It's non-renewable, right? Okay, so I'm willing to gamble that I hope that they can get approval. And then I guess as a finance guy, I'm willing to gamble even though I lose some money subsidized. And again, I really want to emphasize, maybe in January, we can really demonstrate to you we're not really that kind of significant subsidizing contract city, because otherwise I would not feel good myself. So I guess I will support this. And hopefully after the meeting, I can talk to Commissioner Kenny, and or the staff can really give him the comfort that this is good. He had every single right to ask a question, and he should be satisfied on that.
Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. All right, it is now 8:51. We're going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and we're going to be coming back into executive session for items 14A, potential litigation pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1I, and 14B, review the performance of a public employee pursuant to RCW 4230-110-1G. We'll call that executive session for an initial 30 minutes with the potential to extend, and we will be returning to regular session following the executive session. So please join back on for those who are to be on that executive session. Please join back on at 9:02 in executive session, and we'll get through that and get back into our regular session and return to item 10C. See you in about 10 minutes.
The executive session has been extended for 20 minutes.
The executive session has been extended for 20 minutes until 10:12 p.m. The executive session has been extended for 20 minutes until 10:32 p.m. The executive session has been extended for 5 minutes until 10:37 p.m.
Returning back to regular session out of an executive session meeting. It's 10:38. We'll be returning to our agenda item 10C, the IAFF Local 1828-S 2018 to 2022 collective bargaining agreement for approval. As most commissioners will remember, this item was brought to a vote on December 7th and failed with a 3-3 tie. And we're bringing this item back in an attempt to see if we can pass this before the end of the year and move forward with our DC contract. With that, I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2018-2022 collective bargaining agreement for the DC contract. Is there a second on the motion? Commissioner Meador? Any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Kenny?
Yes, I remain opposed to the deputy chief's contract and incorporate by reference all of my statements from the last time we dealt with this, and the motion to approve it was defeated. I believe that was 2 meetings ago. And in summary, it's because the 21% increase is not justified by the average of our comparables, which our own data indicates is 17.24%, is the difference between the average of our comparables from battalion chief to whatever the next level of chief is. Here, it's deputy chief. That's 17.24% amongst our comparables. We're offering 21 for no good reason other than why not? And that turns into, my analysis says that turns into about $30,000 gratuitously extra per year, which in the context of our $80+ million budget is not a large amount of money. But that percentage increase is a difference that may impact our main union contract coming up for negotiation next year. We in the past have been very focused about averages because of the city of Edmonds, and any amounts above the average of our comparables, South County Fire eats as an additional cost, not the city of Edmonds. So we've been very focused on averages. Here, we just give away percentage points above the average. And if it's good for deputy chiefs who we work with regularly, why isn't it good for all the firefighters and captains and paramedics that provide service on the street? I enjoy working with our deputy chiefs. I have no argument there. The issue is a management perspective on the contract, which I think are inappropriate giveaways from the management perspective. In addition, the other big issue for me is that that tries in the 21% is basically set in stone forever as a floor. It may go up, but it's never going to go down in this first contract with the deputy chiefs. Previously we had this, or not previously, but if we had let it float each year, every 3 years when we renegotiated, we would look at the market, look at those percentages of our comparables for what is the average of between the battalion chief and the next level chief. And we would negotiate around that every 3 years. Now setting in at 21%, it'll be 21% forever or higher. It's never going lower. And I think that is something that South County Fire and its predecessor, Fire District 1, had tried to stay away from, an ability to look at these positions every 3 years or so and provide what the market provides, not just additional percentage points because for whatever reason. So I'm opposed to the contract. I also don't like how we're now setting up a pyramid system where everybody's focused on the senior firefighter. The captain has to make a certain amount more than the senior firefighter. The people with hazardous waste or hazardous chemical certifications make certain amount above the senior firefighter. The battalion chief and the MSO make a certain amount. Everybody's got to make these percentages more. And now we're tacking in the deputy chiefs to that. To me, that doesn't make good sense. I can't change it in the main contract, but we don't have to agree to that here. But that's what this contract does. And so, of course, what's going to happen next? Well, the assistant chief's got to be 21% above the deputy chiefs, right? And then what about the chief? The chief's got to be 21% or more above the assistant chief. So it creates this huge pyramid where everybody who's actually going to be negotiating this at the negotiating table on the main contract, they're all focused on senior firefighter. Bump that up and everybody up the line makes money. So to me, this is an opportunity to separate that. Have this be a difference with the deputy chiefs and reevaluate this every 3 years. But this just ties into that pyramid. And I think that is unfortunate. So in summary, those are my objections to the contract, and I urge a no vote.
Thank you. Any other comments? Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes, and basically I agree with everything Jim said. The problem that we got into was that the commissioners have to operate with one hand tied behind their back. We have to negotiate in an executive meeting where we can't vote. So it's really hard to know what the vote is, what the commissioners would vote on. And so we have to offer a contract. So we offered it to them basically, and then we pulled it back. And that's the problem. That's like, okay, well, I don't, all the consequences of that. So it's just unfortunate that maybe we didn't spend more time and we didn't hear more what Jim had to say. If he had those thoughts back then, I can't remember. because I totally agree with them. The obscenity that is the collective bargaining act that we have to deal with, it needs to be modified. It probably won't ever be modified, not with the political situation that we're in. And that obscenity will keep going on, and the public will have to be paying more and more and more to public workers, especially, well, in general, but also with this particular thing with the police and firefighters, and eventually bankrupt us. I don't know, how many years it will go on and on and on and on. This leapfrogging from one fire station or fire district to the city or the RFA, leapfrogging. And we did have, I think, majority head nods at one time to go ahead with this, not an actual vote, but that's the problem. The firefighters, they can vote, do all this secret negotiate, all this secrets, get all the votes, head counts, agree on things. We can't. And little snafus like this pop up. So we're just going to have to, that's why I'm going ahead with I voted for it before. I'm going to vote for it again.
Any other comments, Commissioner Meador?
Yes, I was the one that would be changing my vote to yes, not because of Commissioner Kenny's logic. It's very good. And I agree that it seems like all we do is spend a lot more of our taxpayers' money trying to correct this issue. Again, the Collective Bargaining Act, 50 years of never being reviewed by the legislature and no intention of ever reviewing it is a hard pill to swallow. But I can't vote for something that's going to be a negative for us in future negotiations as well as economic issues. But I do agree with Commissioner Kenny's analysis of this situation.
Any other discussion on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 4-2. Thank you. Moving on to item 10D, our HB 1310 resolution and policy for action.
I'd just like to say one thing that I think we got great deputy chiefs. There's nothing about them. I think Bob said that, even and Jim said that. So yeah, it's just this darn collective bargaining act that we're all riling against here, not you guys. We love you. I'll even give you a hug someday.
Thank you, Commissioner Lawrence. So on to our HB 1310 with Rich Davis and DC Maxwell.
All right, so commissioners, we brought this to the board the last meeting. Again, what this really is an effort to address some of the liability risks associated with situations in which our EMS providers will find themselves as a consequence of law enforcement not always attending to scenes that they have in the past. I don't think that, from what I understand, that anything in the policy is much different than what South County Fire already practices. But if you recall the discussion that we had in the lead up to discussing the policy, really decisions made at the governance level like this can provide an additional level of protection over decisions that are made in the field. And so my recommendation is for the board to adopt this resolution and policy. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any questions for Rich? Entertain a motion if anybody wishes to motion to approve resolution number 1221-2021-19. Commissioner Teoflack, motion. Any second on the motion? I'll second the motion. Any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I gotta go back and look at that. I'm not even sure what we're talking about.
So what this does, Commissioner, is it makes certain policy decisions about responses where law enforcement would ordinarily have been on scene, but they're not. And so there is a potential danger to the safety of the personnel that are responding. And so it provides certain steps to take in order to ensure their safety while providing care to the extent possible. That's essentially what it does.
Okay, yeah, I remember thinking, yes, we need to do, because this is an insane situation that our leftist liberal politicians got us into here with another obscene political act. And so sounds pretty, but does anybody have a con to this so I could have a perspective? Anybody on the board here? Going, not wanting this, or is it a good idea? Come on, Jim, help me out.
I don't have anything for you, Mark.
Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Guess
Commissioner Chan, was that an aye?
Aye.
Great. Motion carries.
Yeah. I guess
Thank you, staff. Thank you, staff, for working on that. Moving on to item 10E, our new commissioner appointment update with Alyssa.
So as you all know, we have in January, we will have 2 commissioner positions open, and we have already started the process for the District 4 opening and started to present all of the information to the public to obtain applications for that position. After the winner of the election, Ms. Ohaleto, declined the position that she won in the November election, we now have an additional opening. And as we discussed in the last meeting, Commissioner Kenny made a recommendation to have both positions be considered at the same time. And I would just like, and I think staff would like some direction on whether or not the rest of the board feels that would be a good idea, if they have any other recommendations, and we can work on a calendar and work on some additional public outreach in order to make that all happen.
So speaking to public outreach, have we received any applications for position 4, which has been out there now for close to a month?
We have not. I've received 1 inquiry.
1 inquiry. So the fervor for position 4 is not there. I'm wondering how fervent the position for position 6 will be. So is there anything else in addition that we can do to, I was going to say compel, but that's not the right word, people to actually apply? Any other thoughts from staff or public information?
Door to door. Someone's got to go door to door.
I thought you were going to say pay increase, but okay, door to door.
Yeah, about 100 times. So the thing is, back up to the at-large position, we can't really do anything until the new year because she could change her mind. So I don't think we can do anything till the new year. On that.
Well, I don't believe she can change her mind. She's already submitted.
No, legally, she still could change her mind. I think Rich will back me up on that. Rich, I'm always right. Why don't you confirm that again?
Sorry, I wasn't on mute there.
I mean, I think it's an extremely remote chance. There is a chance she could change her mind and take the oath on the first of the year, but from what I understand, it's not likely. And as I mentioned the last time, you can go ahead and start taking steps to fill the position. You just can't make the decision on who to appoint until after the new year.
Okay, so I was not right this time. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, I think we need to prepare that. And if she step back in, we just don't appoint anyone. I mean, we're even we ask for people application. But I do want to, for Melissa, have the messages. I sent out this, Mike, can you kind of do my exhibit?
Sure.
A?
Should I start with the email?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna.
I think I sent this email out back in, I think a few weeks ago. I think we need to focus on the people asking what's the responsibility and that type of thing. I just kind of profile, using Commissioner Meador as an example. What kind of commissioner? This is a rare chance that we can really appoint a commissioner that we like to have all the characteristics. So I don't know if you guys have a chance to look at that or not, but I would like to see some kind of that's what the standard we're using to evaluate the candidate, but also we can some of the verbiage in there that Melissa can pick and kind of asking the candidate. I think one of the, I don't want, it's too late, too long a meeting today, but I think if somebody have board membership, a board experience, I think that really helps how the board work. And I don't know, I'm just up to the chair, but I can go through point by point, or we just kind of say, yeah, it looks
I think we're not, I don't think anybody's in disagreement that we need to, definitely have some good qualities in candidates. My question is, if we get no candidates, what's our step? And if we get one candidate, is it just an assumed, we had one person that applied from District 4 and it's an automatic? So because we have a time clock ticking where if we don't have somebody appointed within 90 days, then the county council is going to be picking for us. So having this kind of criteria is great when we've got people to pick through. What do we do if we don't have people to pick through?
Well, we have until, I think Commissioner Candy calculated that out until January something.
February 23rd, because the
23rd,
certification was November 23rd. So we have 90 days from then for position 4. And then
District 4 position, correct.
For District 4, yes.
Right.
And I'm assuming do we have 90 days from the rescinding of, or it's just from the first?
No, my understanding is it's from the first.
Okay, so it's not
because
from when
Commissioner
she
Meador is
rescinded.
still seated.
Okay, so then we would have essentially till end of March for the 6 at large.
Right. So that's why it's important for us to go through all media as some, I don't know, maybe Leslie can write something kind of attractive type of thing to get that's, and then every one of us should go and recruiting people that we know they think was good and see what we can do.
Definitely made complicated by District 4 with bounds.
Yes.
At large makes it a lot easier.
Yeah.
As we all know, it's a very restricted space to try to find someone within. So, I mean, we've currently got position, the District 4 position posted, and it's up on the commissioner page with the maps and everything else. We can continue to encourage everybody to shake the tree, try to find somebody to apply for a District 4 spot. I would hate to have us get towards the end of January with nobody applying and be up against a deadline for the county to put somebody in place.
Well, that's why it's important that we go through all the local news, Edmond news, Linwood news, and even
what's the current? I know those have been posted out. What's the current cycle of those things going out? Was it a one-time posting? Is it something that's on a weekly basis? Melissa, are you able to share as far as the frequency?
Sure. The Herald ad has been run by the time January 5th, which is our original deadline. As it stands right now, we have an original deadline for the District 4 position as the 5th of January. So the final ad will run on Sunday the 2nd. And so what we're trying to do tonight, I believe, is make a determination as to how we should proceed, knowing that we have had no applications. We've put out as much, I mean, I've reached out to HR to see if they can do something with maybe the LinkedIn site. We've put in, you know, the Herald ad, which we've paid for. This will, by the time the one on the second runs, it'll be three Sundays that it will have run. Leslie has put out press releases to every local paper. And as you may have seen in some of the news release emails that I've sent, there have been quite a few that have listed, have run pieces on it. She's put through social media, Nextdoor, and it's been frequent. I mean, she's reached out to me every week and asked me if I wanted more outreach, and I've told her as much as you can possibly do, please do.
Let me ask, how big is the ad in the Snow Isle? I mean, in the Herald, is that just a classified ad, or really a quarter page or something?
It's well, it's not a quarter page, but it is a display ad that was designed with our logo, and yeah, it's a full color display ad.
Okay, people would see it. It's not.
I would hope so. Yeah, I would think so.
Okay, maybe Slow Isle. I think Commissioner Kenny maybe it's a good idea. The other commissioner, you know, spread the words out.
Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah,
Kenny.
how about front page on the Siren next issue of, let's say, our best looking commissioner? I don't know who that would be. And then or something like, anyway, front page, whatever it is, something that would be attractive to someone. Certainly not my picture. And maybe like rolling in, driving a fire engine or something. This could be you kind of like at the top.
Bait and switch, Commissioner Lawrence, bait and switch. We don't get to drive the fire trucks. Commissioner
That's where
Kenny, you
that
had your hand up?
ladder truck would come in.
Ladder truck. We'll put Bob on the end of it as he's screaming. Ah!
Commissioner Kenny?
So my suggestion is that we consolidate the two together. 90 days from November 23rd is Monday, February 21st. So that's our deadline to appoint. My suggestion is we move our current process back a month with applications, run one advertisement, one 8.5 by 11-inch piece of paper equivalent, showing both positions, somehow noting, which one you're applying for, whatever we need on there, and a map on there so you can tell where District 4 is. But have the deadline be Wednesday, February 2nd. Resumes and applications go out in the Friday, February 4 meeting packet. Board reviews an executive session who we want to interview. We do that review at the work session on Tuesday, February 8th, and interviews are the following Tuesday, February 15th, so that we can put in the materials. People should know that's when the interviews are. So make sure you're starting to clear your calendar. That backs us up right against Monday, February 21st, but buys us another month beyond the holidays to get people interested. And I think once we get beyond the holidays, I'm confident we're going to have some applications. Some, in good years, it's 10 or 12. In not so good years, it's 3. So I think between the two spots, we'll have some, maybe it won't be out, 12, but we'll have some. And that buys us some more time, allows us to consolidate the advertising together. But does mean we'll be spending some time on resumes, applications, and interviews in February, but we just bite the bullet at one time, crank it out, and get those two hopefully appointed at the meeting on February 15. And in theory, if all goes according to plan, we would have 2 new commissioners appointed essentially at that point. So anyways, the only one that we absolutely have to get done that night would be the District 4, because we're backed up against the deadline on that. The at-large position, we would have at least another month if we ran into troubles. So that buys us a little flexibility around the at-large spot. But I do acknowledge we're kind of backing up against the District 4 deadline, but I feel like it would be nice to buy some more time on the other side of the holidays to make sure we're doing some advertising.
Agreed. It doesn't make sense to close the process if we have nobody that's applied. So pushing us out a month just puts the onus on us to get it done quickly and do some more shaking in the RFA and see if we can find people to apply. Commissioner Lawrence?
Yeah, the District 4 ads, they go out with a map showing the boundaries of the district, right?
Yeah.
Not the ad, but the ad. Are you talking about the display ad? That takes you to a link, or it offers you a link to our website that has a great deal of information in addition to the map.
So but in the ad,
zoom in on.
they're seeing, does it say kind of the areas, Lake Stickney or whatever it is, kind of around that area, but for specifics, they go to see the actual boundaries? And is there a way for them to put in their address and see if they're actually truly in it, if they're not?
Not to put in their address, but you can zoom in on the map. It's a high def map that you can zoom in on and you'd be able to see streets.
Okay.
So you could tell.
Yeah, so if definitely has got to have some of that general idea where it is, so people think, oh yeah.
Do you mind sending an ad to all of us, the ad, to prove that the ad?
The one that we're running now, or
yes.
the one that we will be recreating tomorrow?
Okay, you get the one recreated.
I mean, if we go with Commissioner Kenny's recommendation,
yes.
we'll be completely changing it.
But I think important that do you have your name there?
My name?
Yeah.
It
is
yes.
important.
It has my phone number and my name to contact and where to send an application, the deadline, and the commissioner role.
But also that if they want, because for regular
if they have any questions.
Yeah, this regular citizens don't know where position for is.
Yep.
You need to be available to tell.
Yes,
you can check the address,
my
right?
information is on there.
Yeah, it's important. Even bigger, your name should be a bigger one than anybody else. Okay.
Another tool which may not work, timing wise for something along these lines is EDDM, Every Door Direct Mail, where essentially you're picking sub-zip codes and it goes to every address within that sub-zip code, which would probably be pretty easy to isolate out District 4 addresses or sub-zip codes. And the cost for a postcard going out is almost half of what the first rate postage is, because it's a bulk rate where you're essentially saying, here's the 400 cards that go to this sub-zip code, here's the 400 that go to that, and they just deliver it to every address. That might be an option, and one that isn't crazy expensive. And it's a pretty powerful tool. You can do the mapping for EDDM is available through the USPS website. And so one other option.
Is that something we have to create in-house?
You could create the postcard.
Or
it's really, you show up to the post office with the stack of exactly the number of cards for each of those sub-zips, and it's processed through that way.
But that's something that we have to manage in-house, or we hire a vendor to do it. That would be a Leslie job.
I was throwing it out there. You do with it what you want, but it's an option that gets it into specific sub areas.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Commissioner Teoflock?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Like a direct mailer to that specific region makes the most sense, and getting an estimate what the cost is would let us know if it is worthwhile.
And like I said, it's sub what it would be to do first class or use your postage machine at the office, because it's just a bulk going to every single address in that sub-zip. So happy to send links to you to share if that's useful later on. All right, we move on. We're trying to pull Commissioner Meador
Did
into
we
a 2-day
decide
meeting.
to do that?
Yeah,
Sorry, Commissioner Kenny?
I support that. But
If we need a motion, I'll do a motion that we set the application deadline for both positions, February 2, 2022, 5 p.m. That the applications go out in our board meeting packet on Friday, February 4. Board reviews the applications February 8th at the work session. Interviews with selected applicants will be Tuesday, February 15. with a likely decision that night.
Is there a
I'll
second on the
second that
motion? Commissioner Chan. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, further discussion, I think, Melissa, I think it would be great giving send us a little draft, whatever you have now, so we can give us, I think there needs to be some description in there, because a lot of people don't even know what by commissioner does. So we make a lot of assumptions people know about us, which is not necessary. So we might take a look and maybe get some information on there.
All right. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Commissioner Teoflag, was that an aye?
Abstain?
Abstain. Okay.
I was waiting
All
for
right.
option 3. Yeah.
All right, moving on to item 11A, a resolution to appoint auditing officer, Chief Eastman.
So this one should be pretty straightforward. The previous resolution actually named Kathleen Younglove specifically. And so this is to actually appoints the position. So whether it's a CFO or finance director or as the auditing officer, and it also in case that position's vacated, the chief has the authority to designate an auditing officer if if that position's vacated. And so that's essentially what this is we have to have an auditing officer. As most of you know, we're currently in I think the final stages of an audit. And so this resolution, I think, is a housekeeping item, takes a specific name out, makes it a position, and if the position's vacated, authorizes that the chief has the authority to designate an acting officer if that position's vacated.
Great. Any questions for Chief Eastman? Commissioner Kenny?
Motion that we adopt resolution 12212021-2, appointing auditing officer.
I have a second on the motion. Commissioner Lawrence, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to 11B, or GIS specialist resolution for COLA with Director Hollenbeck.
Good evening again, commissioners. So starting on page 207 in your packet, we have 3 resolutions, and I know you would take action on them separately, but the gist of these 3 is that this board approved the COLA for the non-rep, non-contracted employees. These are to follow up with the contracted employees, beginning with the Steve Wheeler, who we've traditionally this board has traditionally approved the COLA for him as well. And then I know that this board separately discussed the potential pay increases for the executive assistant for the board as well as the fire chief. So with that, I will turn it back over to you.
Commissioner Kenny.
Motion to approve resolution 12212021-21, authorizing a cost of living increase COLA for Stephen Wheeler for year 2022.
We have a second on the motion. Commissioner Chan, any discussion on the motion? Commissioner Lawrence, oh, no. No discussion. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then moving on to item 11C, our review and the resolution for our 2022 executive assistant. We have a motion to approve as presented. Commissioner Kenny.
A motion to approve resolution 12212021-22, resolution setting 2022 executive assistant to Board of Commissioners salary.
That's a lot of ones and twos. Do I have a second on the motion? Commissioner Lawrence. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And moving on to item 11D, a resolution setting the 2022 fire chief salary. Commissioner Kenny, motion.
Motion to approve resolution 12212021-23, resolution setting 2022 fire chief salary.
We have a second on the motion. Commissioner Teoflack. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, moving on to item 12A, or committee updates, Capital Facilities Commission with Commissioner Kenny.
We gave you everything we had earlier tonight, so nothing else.
He's spent. Perfect. Item 12B, our intergovernmental committee with Commissioner Meador. Your
Yeah.
last of your intergovernmental committee updates.
My last hurrah. Yes, the intergovernmental committee, the issue that was discussed earlier in the agenda concerning Mill Creek was handled very well, and we had a little discussion about the Edmund situation in executive session. So both the issues that were before the intergovernmental committee have been dealt with.
Great. And then 12C,
Yeah.
anything as far as the CFO?
Yeah, again, there's been an offer to a potential CFO employee, and we're waiting for the background checks and for some other issues, but that seems to be winding down. Hopefully that committee will sunset, and we won't have to go through that anymore.
Thank you for the hard work, you and Commissioner Burnett, and at the last minute, Commissioner
That's right.
Chan and myself, and to chief staff, everybody, for that lengthy process. And hopefully this result will hold and we can move forward. And Commissioner Chan, Snow 911.
Yeah, we have a meeting last week, Thursday, kind of wrap up everything. Capital facility plan, they talked about future, and also they have approval of the increase of the salary of the executive director. I don't remember, I had 3%, so I don't know exact the number, but I'll find out that later for you.
All right. Moving on to commissioner comments. Anybody wishing to make comment? I'll just reiterate, thank you, Commissioner Meador. I don't know if I've got that many years on a fire commission in me, but good on you.
I just want to again thank everybody involved with the staff, as well as the other commissioners and past commissioners. It's been a big run for me in the fire service. It's been a good thing. Some challenges, but overall, I'm very happy. I'm leaving, I think, with the RFA in good shape. And I mean, there's some struggles ahead, but I think that it's got a good board. Hopefully, they'll add two additional really good members, and things will be good. And so, but I'll be watching, and or I'll be hearing. I got a neighbor that's very involved. And so,
well, I just want to make sure you don't become one of our frequent 911 callers just to be able to interact with our firefighters. So feel free to reach out in other ways.
Anyway, it's been great. Thank you very much, everybody. And Melissa, thank you very much for taking charge of getting rid of me. So did a great job. I do anything for cake. Okay.
Commissioner Kenny, I saw your hand earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you again to Commissioner Meador for all the years of service.
Yeah.
I do want to thank all of our employees and staff for providing service to the public throughout the year, both those that are providing direct service and everybody providing supporting service behind the scenes. I also want to thank our taxpayers who fund it all and make it happen. I wish everybody a happy holidays and looking forward to a good new year. Thank you, everybody.
Great.
Any other commissioners wishing to make comment? Commissioner Chan?
Yeah, originally I have my reflection, but in short time, I'm going to just again echoing Bob. We should still have coffee and go watch basketball together.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, of course, echo Commissioner Kenny said about without all the people on the Zoom meeting right now, it will not get done. But I'm really happy that hopefully we can welcome Mill Creek to be part of the RFA. and I think we'll continue growing. More people contribute to this, it would be great. And I'm looking forward for 2022. And I want to wish everybody happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right, if there's nothing else, that will conclude our last commissioner meeting of 2021.
Thanks.
Happy retirement, Commissioner Meador.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Happy
Commissioner
holidays.
Meador. Yeah, happy
All
holidays,
right.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Stay safe.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.